Welcome to another edition of the 5-Star Zone. We're in championship week. Howard, a lot is going on in the Big Ten. The game has been played, and once again, the University of Michigan has come out on top. Yep. This time led by interim head coach Sharon Moore. I mean, here's the thing. If you didn't have a dog in this fight, it was entertaining. It was a battle. It went back and forth. Now, it was higher stakes if you were a Wolverine fan. You loved it. If you're a Buckeye fan, my condolences to you because I don't know where you go from here. But in watching that game, Howard, the biggest thing that I took away is, man, these were the best two teams in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I think without question. You look at the rosters, top to bottom, both of these teams are loaded. You can make the argument that Ohio State may have more of the 5-star guys as far as the ratings are concerned. But, what they've been able to do over in Michigan and really combining not only the players that they have developed, but the players that they have also brought in through the portal. Right. And then you look at, remember, for the longest time when Coach Harbaugh first took over, he was in the portal like every year, it seemed like, looking for a quarterback, trying to figure it out. And it never could really get right. And so I think early he was taking a lot of criticism on, being able to develop these young quarterbacks. And we've watched him do it now. And you saw what Cade was able to do a couple of years ago. And now you see JJ, who is really, blossomed into an elite quarterback. I mean, the numbers don't necessarily show it because I don't think they ask him to do a lot of things as much as some other places do. But this is a total team. And really, when you look at it, it's unfortunate, obviously, if you're an Ohio State fan, but this Michigan team really did all the things that they needed to do. And Coach Moore, and that dude's going to be a head coach real quick.
It's funny that you said that. I wanted to talk about that a little bit later, but since we're here, What do you do if you're Michigan? What do you do if you're Coach Moore? We don't know what the uncertainty is of Jim Harbaugh, but it's no secret, Howard, that Harbaugh is, he's tried to get back into the NFL for the last 2 years. There's no secret to that. If you're Michigan, do you do whatever it takes to make sure that this man is the next coach? He's the coach in waiting. And if you're Coach Moore, do you have to look at some opportunities that are out there and say, well, I got to do what's best for me? Like, how do you handle this if you're Michigan? How do you handle this if you're Coach Moore?
Yeah, I think first let's start off if you're Coach Moore. I'm sure he's got representation, and I'm sure his representation's phone has been ringing off the hook. But you also have to keep in mind he's in a prime job, right? He's in a prime situation trying to make a run. So all of his focus needs to stay right there on the Michigan Wolverines, and his agents and representatives need to handle what they need to do. Look at those opportunities, explore what's out there. I mean, you're Michigan. I think you're standing pat. You're just waiting to see what's going to happen. You're trying to get through, hopefully, the next 3 games. You have 3 more games, hopefully, if you're Michigan, and kind of evaluate things as they go because you don't really know what the future holds, and it's a tough situation to be in if you're Ward Manuel, but on the other side, it may not be that tough because he can sit back and let the cards come to him because he knows exactly, what's out there and what's available to him. If Coach Harbaugh was not to be there and he wanted to look at other opportunities in the NFL, I mean, he doesn't have to go far if he wants to find the guy that he wants to lead the program. And I think you just look at the passion and the way he handled himself at Penn State and obviously earlier in the year and versus Ohio State, just how aggressive he was in play calling, right? So it wasn't like, Coach Harbaugh is over his shoulder. I mean, he literally, you saw 2 different game plans against what you can argue Penn State and Ohio State. And I thought he did an unbelievable job of taking the risk when he needed to take them and his players being able to execute.
Yeah, because, I mean, I really do think that Michigan may have stumbled into something very similar to like Ohio State when Irvin leaves and Ryan Day was
Yeah.
right there on the staff, and it just seemed like a very smooth, easy transition. We kept things going. It wasn't a change in culture. It wasn't a change in philosophy. It wasn't changing anything. It was just a change in the guy who was telling you what to do. It was a guy who was leading the practices and leading the games. That was it. But now we go to the flip side, because I saw, like, on social media, you're on social media. I mean, you got guys who were just upset. I mean, I saw Maurice Clarett, the former Buckeye running back. He wanted blood, Howard. He wanted blood. He's just like, you got to fire Ryan Dan. It's like, whoa. The man is like, what? I think like 54-6. Now, 3 of his losses have come to Michigan, but he's 54 wins. Like, he's not lost to any Big Ten teams other than Michigan. Like, are we really ready to throw away the baby with the bathwater here? I mean, is this just cooler heads need to prevail, or should Ryan Day be worried?
You know, I think there are a couple things at work here, right? I mean, obviously they're going to have to hire a new AD. Right. Gene Smith isn't getting involved in what needs to take place. And quite frankly, if Gene Smith was involved, he would be saying, hey, hold on now, just to slow down. I know we haven't been winning the game that everybody wants us to win, right, but this is still and you might as well say an elite coach, been able to get it done. He just has not been able to get over the hump recently of what Michigan has. And I think you also have to acknowledge that Michigan isn't the Michigan team it was 4 or 5 years ago. We've watched Harbaugh, really retool that staff this last time, and it really took off. I mean, it really took the next step. So Michigan right now is playing at a very high level. There's been times in the past where they haven't been, and Ohio State was able to dominate, but that's not the case right now. You've got 2 programs who have unbelievable defenses, unbelievable rosters. And clearly the coaching staffs are elite as well. Now the Ohio State fan base is upset, the alums upset, particularly the alums that did not lose to Michigan. Right. Those are the ones that are up in arms, quite frankly. But it's one of those things, man. The expectation is to be able to beat your rival and play for a national championship. And it's been a tough situation the last couple of years, the last 3 years for Ohio State in that area.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the Buckeyes, and I think Marvin Harrison Jr. at the end of the game kind of capsulized everything when he just kind of sat on the ground and was like, I don't know what else we could have done, but it was a great game. For, like I say, if you didn't have a horse in the race, man, it was fun to watch. That whole weekend was fun. Between that game, between the end of the Auburn-Alabama game, the Washington State game. It was like, man, I'm looking forward to conference championship weekend, because I think every game has all the levels of intrigue, except maybe the Big Ten game when you got Iowa coming in there. This at the beginning of the year, I was just like, man, how fun would it be if it was JJ versus Cade McNamara, Michigan versus Iowa, Eric All, Loveland, it had all the drama, but unfortunately, Eric All is out, Cade McNamara is out. You got the Iowa Hawkeyes who they keep winning games. I equate them and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know how they keep winning, but they keep winning. They don't score a ton of points. Ironically enough, both teams wear black and gold. I don't see the Steelers. They may be Clark Kent and Superman. They could be the same person, Howard. I don't know. But when you look at this game coming up this weekend, if you're Iowa, what do you do to shock the world?
It's interesting that you bring up before that. It's interesting that you bring up the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? And I think when you look at a organization that's the model of what I think you want to be. You think, 4 coaches in the history of the franchise. Yeah. They don't give up on coaches quickly, no matter what they say. But it was interesting. Both Iowa made the move earlier to say that their offensive coordinator, Brian Barnes, was not going to be back. You look at Pittsburgh a couple of weeks ago or last week, made the decision that Matt Canada was going to move on from Matt Canada. And those moves were two moves that you historically have not seen those programs make, particularly in the middle of the year. The difference, obviously, in Iowa is Brian Ferentz is still, the offensive coordinator, but he's not going to be moving forward to next year. And man, it really is amazing. I had a chance. I was over there Sunday to talk with coaches there, and man, they just are so bought into what the program is, and they literally just block out the outside noise, because I think it's remarkable that you can have a defense that plays as well as they play. And oh, by the way, they lost their best player a couple of weeks ago in Cooper DeJean, who will be a first-round draft pick, and they still have guys that are just step up. I mean, Deacon Hill, the quarterback, he looked nothing like this in training camp. He wasn't ready, and they'll tell you he wasn't ready. And they'll say in some areas he's probably still not where they need him to be, but they're in the championship game.
Right.
And they find ways to do it. They probably have the best punter in college football. They do an amazing job in special teams until, oh, by the way, last week when they really had all kind of issues in special teams, but then they go to the bench, bring a kicker in that hadn't kicked all year for them, and drills the game winner for them. So, man, I don't know how they do it. And I think at this particular point, you just know that if you're Michigan, you have to put this game away early. You can't let them hang around to the fourth quarter, because anything can happen. They have proven it. They will take the football away. They're going to force JJ to make, all the right reads, all the right throws. He knows where they're going to be, but they've got to be able to execute. Michigan does, and it's about getting off to a fast start for them as well.
Yeah, because I think back to I believe it was a year. I think it was Ohio State and Northwestern,
mm-hmm.
and no one gave the Wildcats a chance. Yeah. And you looked up, Howard, and it was in the
mm-hmm.
third quarter, and it was like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be a blowout. We're actually having a real game being played here.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, how did the Hawkeyes tap into that and get, because every game has been a grinded out type of game.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look at Michigan, man, they're when they're playing anybody outside of Ohio State, they kind of put them away. That was my biggest thing, is if you're Iowa, no one's giving you a shot. No one's
mm-hmm.
giving you a chance. You're a mass unit. You got everybody's backups to backups in there. Is there any way that we look up and you'll be there, I'm sure, that you're seeing, black and gold confetti raining down from the sky saying, how'd the Hawkeyes do this?
Well, if that happens, that's what we'll all be saying. I think to a man, Iowa will tell you this is a huge task that they have in front of them. But like most things with this Iowa team, they've been able to overcome them, and they fight through it, and they do what they need to do. It's funny. You talk about two teams that are going to meet, Iowa and Michigan, who all year have been galvanized by what's going on the outside, right? And sure, whether or not you say, okay, well, the Connor Stallion stuff was brought up from the inside, and then people reacted, and then but they still have to believe in each other, and they've never wavered. They have that chip on their shoulder, and Iowa has been the same way. They've been told what they can't do, particularly on the offensive side, and all of a sudden they find ways to make plays. And it's crazy, because some weeks, Iowa's run game is really working for them. It's like, shoot, that thing is going to, they can really take care of some things. So, I think it starts obviously with Iowa's offensive line being able to protect and being able to run the football to give them a chance in this game. Deacon Hill's going to be under pressure. They're going to be bringing pressure. So he's going to need to make sure that those reads are right, that he can get to those outlets or the hot routes as quickly as possible, because if he holds on to the ball, Michigan's going to get home. they're going to get home. They're going to find a way to do that. They've done it all year to everybody. So, it's a tough one. And the other side of it is Hill is not necessarily a threat to run the football. So they know exactly where he's going to be in his drops. So, those defensive linemen can rush the passer and believe that they're going to be able to also stop the run. So that's why I think it's going to be important for them to try to be as balanced as they possibly can. They be in Iowa.
Right.
Because if it's all about pass, it's going to be a long day for the Hawkeyes.
Well, see, here's the funny thing, because my next question is, on the flip side, it's not to be disrespectful for Iowa, but if you're Michigan, you're a 24-point favorite. Like, Will Johnson gets injured. He's icing the lower part of his leg. You could clearly see this wasn't one of those I could just shake it off. They held him out. I mean, that's Mark Harrison Jr. he was going up against. He wanted to be out there. He's a competitor.
Yeah.
If you're Michigan, do you take a game like this and maybe rest some of your players knowing we got a lot more games ahead of us if this works out? We got the college football playoffs. We got the semifinals. We got maybe the championship game, and we're going to need Will. If we sit him now, we could get him a month of rest so that he'll be ready for that semifinal game. Or if you anybody who's dinged up, is this one of those games where you kind of play it by ear, but I don't really want to use you. And, in case of emergency, I'll break the glass and put you in. But until then, we're going to hold on to your helmet, son. You're not going to play.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've been able to watch, Michigan do is play a lot of guys. They've played a lot of people on their roster, so they understand, who's in a position to be able to help them. Particularly, obviously, in the secondary. Clinksdale's done an unbelievable job working with that group on the back end. But I think it's all hands on deck. As you start this game, as you go into warm-ups, you make sure that, he's not going to be a liability. They'll always say, well, with him, 75% is good. Well, you might be right, but, can you get through it? Are you able to create some defenses and maybe you need to, give some people some help? I think it's do or die. Everyone knows what's in front of them. And sure, that you should win this game. But I think you start off right off the top and you got your best out there if they're available and can help you. And those are always tough decisions because the one thing about, competitors, they're all liars. I'm good, coach. I can go. It's not a problem.
Yeah, son, your arm is falling off. I literally see the bone. No. I was born that way. My dad's bones shoot out sometimes.
Every now and then that happens. So,
right.
I mean, this is one of those games you have to protect the players. And not one of those games. This is, through all college athletics, you've got to be able to sometimes protect the players from themselves. But that's why this roster is deep and talented, and we'll find out. It's not like Iowa has guys on that roster that are going to run away from the secondary players. Not only the twos, not just the ones, but the twos and the backups. They don't have guys that are just going to flat out outrun people. So, they should feel some comfort there if they have the ability to kind of rest some people or not give them as many reps as the game goes on. But another reason that I think they need to be able to control this game early.
And, okay, let's switch gears. First of all, my guy got the Coach of the Year award, and Coach Braun, Northwestern.
Yeah.
If it was ever a no-brainer, like I said, I know this is one of those where you look at Kirk Ferentz, you held it all together. You found a way to get to Indianapolis. Sharon Moore, hey, you were able to keep this team together through all the controversy, but I don't think it was any bigger controversy than what happened in Northwestern. It happened so early before the season started, we forgot about it. But for a guy to come in to fix the defense and, oh, by the way, Coach Braun, you're not going to have to fix the team and the program. Howard, he did it, and he won 7 games. I mean, everybody's giving Deion props for winning 4. They were both one-win teams last year, Colorado and Northwestern. One's going to a bowl game. One ain't. I mean, I'm looking at this, and I'm like, did Northwestern just stumble into their next star coach?
I think there's a couple things, right? I think he obviously did an unbelievable job. And when we had a chance to talk to him in the summer, it was after, in my opinion, what I saw was probably one of the worst practices I had seen from an energy standpoint. Didn't see, I was accustomed to seeing Northwestern practice a certain way. And it was never one of those practices where they just blew you away. It was just like, it's Northwestern, they'll figure it out, they'll fix it. Same thing with Iowa, they'll figure it out, they'll fix it. Didn't look good early, but they'll be fine once the season started. But I think the message that there was just so much chaos that was going around that they needed somebody with a common voice, and he has one, to really step in. And I think he stepped into a situation where he had no experience, none, at the head coach and sitting in the corner office, let alone experiencing handling a program and trying to guide them through this. And oh, by the way, they're trying to build a new stadium as well. I know that has nothing to do with the head coach, but it's still stuff that's flying around. And they were able to hold it together. Not just hold it together, man, they went out and just handled their business.
Right.
It was. They
feel sorry for themselves. They said, hey, the cards were dealt. Who's a Wildcat? Let's run through this tunnel. Let's go win these games. And they did. Everybody, including myself, just kind of ruled them off. And then you're like, you know what? It's okay if you lose this year because so much has happened. But, man, we talk about just how the Wolverines kind of took all that controversy and internalized it and refocused themselves. But I think lost is what the Wildcats did because – man, I don't think anybody, if Fitzgerald was there, I don't think we was expecting 7 wins.
Oh, no. I'll tell you right now, you wasn't getting 7 wins, even if he was there. This wasn't going to happen. You also talk about guys, they were shuffling quarterbacks. They were dealing with injuries. I mean, it wasn't a perfect season as far as health was concerned with this team. And for him to now be the head coach moving forward, I think, 2 things. I think it's sort of the perfect storm as well. Northwestern is in a spot where now they've got this new stadium that's going to be built, which is going to be unbelievable. But I think they also, quite frankly, showed some financial responsibility.
Yeah.
Of all the things that they've done, all the decisions that they made that a lot of people have not been in favor of, this to me was one that made sense because you had a head coach who the team clearly got up for and wanted to play for and was really able to guide him through this. Now, will he need to make changes or adjust the staff? I'm sure he probably will. But, what he's been able to do, I don't think can be, I don't think it can be measured because I don't know how many coaches could have handled a situation like that. Because remember, it wasn't just the players with the uncertainty. These coaches also, there was uncertainty. We're clearly, I can tell you, when this thing first broke, I don't know how many coaches on that staff actually believed that they would get another year. I mean, so they're thinking, their minds are wandering about what's going to be the next step for me or for them, and they were able to pull it out. But again, I think it's a remarkable job, and one of those things that I think will go down. Hopefully, he gets the National Coach of the Year as well. I know it's tough, and when you're not necessarily from the area and you've been following it, but the job he's done has been unbelievable.
Well, heck, if they could, Sports Illustrated can make Dion the Coach of the Year, then yeah, this guy should be. I don't know how that happened. I'm
based on what, right? Yeah.
I guess if you're looking at it as far as notoriety, yes, Dion, Coach Prime was out there, and you either loved him or you hated him. Mm-hmm. But I look at what Braun did, and it's like amazing. Now, sticking with the coaching thing, Howard. Mm-hmm. I think it's the first time I talked to you since Michigan State hired Jonathan Smith.
Yeah.
They officially hired him, and on Monday, I look at, first of all, I want to get your thoughts on it because this was one, as I told athletic director Alan Haller, man, you held that like a running back hold, and high and tight. He had that coach, like nobody was able to punch through, get any information. He later comes out, I talked to about 12 different people, but this was the guy that they went. They took Coach Smith away from his alma mater of Oregon State. They bringing him here. And I'm wondering, what kind of fit do you think that he will be at Michigan State, a guy who's not from the Midwest, never been east of the Rocky Mountains? How do you think he's going to fit in the Big Ten?
I think it'll be something new, something fresh. I think good, but at his core, it appears that he is a grinder. You don't just win in Corvallis, because you're doing all these fancy things. I mean, he built something there, and obviously it was his alma mater, so he was able to do that. But he's clearly an outstanding football coach. And I was never really concerned. I thought that Allen would do an unbelievable job with the search because he's got a football background. He understands what's going on.
But he gets so quiet. I've never seen a coaching search where it was just quiet. It was funny because I ran into one of his assistants and I was like, "You lied to me the whole time. You told me you didn't." He's like, "I didn't know. I really didn't know. Nobody knew."
Yeah, I think it was on a need to know basis. I think we talked about this before. It wasn't going to be some name, some hotshot name that no one had ever heard of. It was going to be an established guy that they were going to ultimately hire, and that's what they went and did. And they also had to step up a little as well to sweeten the pot to make sure that they could get him because they knew he was going to be coveted by some other programs that were out there. So
right.
I think the thing is this. He's going to have to recruit, put that staff together. It's no doubt that he'll be able to do that. But again, as he's talked about, I think Michigan State is a great job. Yeah, it's an uphill battle when you look at the new teams that are coming in and you look down the road at Michigan and see what they're doing, but it can be built. I mean, it's not like Michigan State lacks resources.
No,
they got a great fan base. You got great players around there.
Howard, my biggest thing is, and I wonder because he kind of touched upon it, like because he played in a state where he was second fiddle to Oregon. Coming into the state of Michigan, you're second fiddle to Michigan.
Yeah.
Do you have to go through that game and through the battles to develop that healthy hate, if that's a word? That how D'Antonio was able to just. There was respect there, but you could also tell it was hate there. Tucker had the hate. Like everybody has that. Like that's the team you have to beat if you want to keep the fans happy. How long does it take for that to kick in, or is that just something that a competitor has?
I think you have to learn why it's so important to people. Right? He knows why that battle in Oregon was important to them. And so he's been in it. So I think when a coach comes into that, he or she has to understand what that why is. Why do we hate each other? And if you're a natural competitor, that's what you need to embrace it. I mean, you're going to read about it. Everywhere he goes, people are going to, at some point after they say congratulations, it's like, we got to get back to beating Michigan. That's what we need to do, right? So, I think that'll be front and center for him. He'll embrace it in a healthy manner and be able to continue to get Michigan State, first of all, stabilized and then start to build. And it'll be important that he puts a staff together that can go out and find those players. Now, it's funny is his quarterback has just gone into the portal.
You know what, Howard? That was my surprise. I was like, you better start learning how to pronounce DJ Ungalungale.
Yeah.
You say it, you guys may need to start rehearsing that one.
Yeah. So
because he just went into the portal. They're waiting on Aiden Childs, the other quarterback, because Michigan State lost all three quarterbacks in the portal.
Yeah.
It's hard, I guess, unless you run a Wildcat with Nate Carter the whole year, which I wouldn't suggest. But yeah, you got to start putting together pieces to the puzzle. Quarterback is most important. But I just saw that DJ just hit the portal a few minutes ago.
Yeah, so and that's the thing we've seen, right? If you want to I think if you want to build a program, I think you still ultimately have to do it through the high schools. That's the way you can build it. But
that's what he said he wants to do. But
yeah, but getting into the portal and it's a dangerous. To me, it's dangerous if you're a developmental program, and that's what Michigan State is, and it's nothing wrong with that. All those 5 stars aren't going to be beating down the door to get in there. I mean, that's just the facts. But if you can develop the players that are there, if you can find those guys that can step in, stopgap guys that can step in and help the program and move it forward while a younger player may start to develop, then that's what you need to do. And we're going to see, I suspect that we'll see, some really good players come into the program, through the portal, and I think during recruiting as well.
Yeah, I just kind of secretly want to see DiNardo try to say Ualungale.
Hey, we're going to have our hands full with a lot of names coming up next year, so we'll all have out the pronunciation guides.
See, here's the beauty of it. Now when you guys do your tour in the summer, it's legitimate because you could have new teams. Indiana, all of their players just hit the portal as well. Like, if you're Indiana, I want to finish with this.
Yeah,
you just fired Tom Allen. What direction do they go in for as a coach? Because kind of like Michigan State, they're going to have facilities. They're trying to improve their program.
Yep.
It's not like you're going to be walking into a third world kind of situation.
Yeah.
You're going to have resources. Michigan State, Northwestern, Indiana, it's now there.
Mm-hmm.
2 of the teams have a coach. Indiana doesn't. Where does Indiana go?
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one.
Now, would they go after more from Michigan? Because what I thought about was Mike Hart, because Mike Hart was on the staff there.
Yeah, I would say they can go after whoever they'd like to at Michigan. I think timing would obviously be an issue for going after those guys. But I will say this: there are probably other opportunities, out there for them, for those guys that they'll be getting calls from. But you have to call. You have to say, "Hey, would you be interested?" And you have to let them tell you no, yes or no. One of them. I'm not going to assume they'd say no. But I think it's interesting, right? So do you go after, the young hotshot, right? The new up and coming guy, because if he turns things around, you're going to be back in looking for a coach in a couple of years. Right. Or do you go after a guy who's established, who's been proven, who's built a program? Do you go back? It used to be a time where, to be a Big Ten coach, you had to go spend some time in the MAC. You had to be successful in the MAC, and then you get the call up. Okay, come on up. You're ready.
Ready for the majors.
So is Jason Candle, that guy who's been in Toledo for 8 years and done some really good things there.
Yeah, honestly, I think he was number 3 choice for MSU at the end. Like he was there along with Elko, Coach Smith. But Candle was there.
So, I mean, that's a guy you could see, who's proven that he's just not going to jump in any and every job because he's had opportunities since he's been in Toledo and he's chosen to stay, and things may have not worked out in some other places. But, so is that a guy that's out there? But I think you need a guy who understands what it takes to build a program. You also have to understand what it takes, the battles that you're going to be in. Because I think the biggest shift that we're going to see, I would say from the middle of the pack down, is athletic departments, fans, boosters, everyone involved may need to reassess what success looks like, right? Because now going to this 18-team league and the way the championship games are going to be, no divisions, there's going to be some times where you can look around and you could be in the middle of the pack and obviously not be in the championship game. So is the goal to make sure you're in the championship game? Are you willing to throw the resources at to try to get there? Or do you have an understanding it's going to be, maybe every 4 or 5 years we strike lightning and we get there?
It's funny.
That's going to be the biggest challenge.
See, I think the biggest challenge is going to be the 12-team playoff because the Big Ten could easily send 4 teams, and it allows you to lose maybe 2 or 3 of the right games. Like Penn State will be a team that would be in there, even though they lost to Michigan and they lost to Ohio State. Right. They would still be in the running. You can still say, well, this year's a success because we still have a shot to redeem ourselves in the 12-team tournament. Now, we don't know if it's going to play like the NCAA basketball tournament where upsets happen or if it's going to go kind of chalky and it's going to end up being number 1 versus number 2 or 1 versus 3 every year. Yeah. But I think for me, for a lot of teams, there's one tier that 8 games. If you can win 8 games a year, that's a good season. The second tier is, can you compete for the playoffs at least every other year? And then I think that last tier is, we want to win the Big Ten and we want to guarantee our spot in the playoffs. But so, I kind of see it breaking down into 3 different tiers, where for some teams, an 8-win season, that was a good year. And we got nothing to complain about. We're going to go play in a bowl game and we'll see what happens. Maybe we can win 9. Yeah. For other teams, I think, can at least every other year you compete for one of those 12 spots. Even if it's spot number 12, you got to play Alabama or Georgia. You know what? You're in. Yeah.
And I think one of the things, and I've kind of tried to draw this parallel with the NCAA tournament. It's a big deal when you make the Sweet 16. It is a big deal. I mean, programs talk about, we made the Sweet 16. We're in the mix. And that's also, a big deal. So I think in college athletics and football now, it's going to be a big deal that you're one of the 12 teams that have been able to get there, regardless of what happens in that week 1 matchup. Right. You could sit there and say, we know that our program each and every year is going to have a shot at it. We just need to make sure we have the right players and we can win the right games to get us there. Because you're right. You look at Penn State, they'd be in. Wisconsin probably could. Iowa, a team like Iowa could.
I was about to say Iowa, they're teetering. It's like, well, Iowa, if you beat Michigan, you're in.
Yeah. So, so I think it's going to be, the interesting thing is for those teams, the teams that don't make the championship game, whoever's 3, 4, 5, somewhere in there, it just depends. What your opportunities are going to look like if you won the right games. If your strength of schedule has been, what you're going to ultimately need it to be. And right now, you look at Michigan's schedule next year. That thing's going to be daunting, but it's full of marquee matchups, which is great. And I think, other teams, the Marylands of the world, they're feeling good because they don't have to look at the Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State each and every year. Indiana's the same way. But I think getting back to it, to me, it still is the challenge will be the expectations of these programs. They need to make sure that they're right, because I think that also could say, well, shoot, I might not want to be involved in that. If you're a young coach, you're like, I'm going to wait for another opportunity. And obviously the stability right now that's in the Big Ten, the SEC, the ACC, if you have an opportunity to go there, you're a young coach, chances are you're going to jump at some of those opportunities. But it'll be, if you're already at a marquee program and you're a coordinator, or you're a position coach, but people are seeing you as a head coach, you're going to kind of sit back and not necessarily jump at all the jobs that come your way. Because look, I mean, guys on that Michigan roster are taking pay cuts, or Ohio State are taking pay cuts to go coach in the MAC. So, it's a different time. A lot of money's being thrown around in athletics, and guys have opportunities. If you're one of the top coordinators or top assistants out there, I mean, you kind of have your pick of the jobs when they come open if you're that good.
Hey, you'll see Howard. He'll be at the championship game. I can guarantee you he will be there. He's always a winner. Howard, once again, I appreciate the time. Enjoy St. Elmo, because I'm sure you guys have a reservation there already. Make sure you run up the tab, send it to the Big Ten. They can pay for it.
Hey, you know what I do in San Elmo's? I just kind of walk in and walk around each table and take food from people off each table. It works that way too.
See, look at that, man. You giving away the secrets, man. That's you know that's what we do when it comes to Thanksgiving and Christmas. You just go and get a plate from house to house.
I hit all the places. I know somebody in the restaurant sitting at the table. I just wander around.
Hey man, let me get a shrimp. Let me try that. We good? All right. Good seeing you. Give me a call.
There you go.
I would appreciate it. Enjoy Indianapolis. I'll be watching. You'll be there. You can see Howard on TV on the Big Ten Network. He'll be back here. We'll wrap up the season and kind of talk about the playoff scenario next week. Ooh. Until then, keep liking, keep watching, keep subscribing, keep telling your friends so brothers can get paid. Howard, appreciate your time, man.
My man. Yep, have a great one.
All right, you too.